Hello everyone, my name is Rachel and welcome back to another true crime video. Today we are looking at a case of when jealousy turns deadly. It's a case of heartbreak and obsession which led to a fatal encounter on a dark road. This is the story of Davis McClendon, Bud Ackerman, and a love triangle that ended in tragedy. But before we get into the disturbing details of this case, as most of you can probably tell, my hair is very important to me and keeping it long, full, and healthy is a top priority. So when I noticed that my hair was starting to look more thin, I knew I needed to take action. So that is why I partnered with Nutrafol. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand trusted by over 1.5 million people. You can see faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. Now, everyone's root causes for hair thinning are so different, so a one-size-fits-all approach to hair growth just isn't going to cut it. Nutrafol has multiple different formulas tailored to give your hair what it needs to grow throughout different stages, such as postpartum, menopause, and for different lifestyles, such as plant-based diets. Nutrafol is physician formulated with 100% drug-free ingredients which support visibly thicker, stronger hair from within by targeting the root causes of thinning, such as stress, hormones, aging, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism, as all of these things change throughout a woman's life. Plus, you can feel great about what you're putting into your body since Nutrafol hair growth supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and NSF Content Certified, the gold standard in third-party certification for supplements. I started using Nutrafol several months ago now, and I've noticed some incredible changes. I've seen my hair looking fuller and healthier overall, along with significantly less shedding. I used to pull out literal handfuls of hair out of my head almost every time I took a shower, and now it's down to just a few strands. It's amazing, and my shower drain is very thankful. So start your hair growth journey now with Nutrafol. Right now, Nutrafol is offering my audience $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you click the link down below and head to Nutrafol.com/RachelShannon and enter the promo code RachelShannon. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair by ordering today. Once again, you can get $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/RachelShannon and enter the promo code RachelShannon. With all of that being said, let's get into the details of today's case. This case starts in 2006 when Meredith Haney met William Bud Ackerman, who went by Bud, and the two began a relationship. They dated for 6 years before getting married in 2012. During the course of their relationship, the couple went on to have 3 children. The family lived together in Greenwood, South Carolina, and at the time, Bud owned a car repair shop while Meredith worked as a grade school teacher. By all accounts, Meredith and Bud had a good partnership for a while. Meredith said that Bud was a good father. But as the years went on, Meredith said that she noticed a shift in Bud's temperament. Work became more stressful, and with that, he became temperamental, depressed, and unpredictable. He started drinking more and became critical of everything she did. He would have random bouts of shouting and losing his temper. He would constantly complain that the house wasn't clean enough, she wasn't cooking enough, and she didn't buy enough groceries. It got to the point that he was ruining Meredith's self-image, and she just couldn't handle it any longer. These were issues she tried to work with Bud to improve. She wanted to make her marriage work, but eventually it grew out of control and she just couldn't do it any longer. So after 10 years of marriage, by the spring of 2022, Meredith filed for divorce. From there, the two made custody arrangements for the kids. Bud moved back in with his parents and tried to get his act together. He seemed to be putting in the effort to better himself. He was drinking less and started taking the kids to church. By all accounts, it seemed like the impending divorce was the push that Bud needed to work on himself. Meanwhile, Meredith kept her head down and tried her best to get used to this new life. She was a single working mother trying to figure out how to juggle being a full-time teacher and mother to 3 children under the age of 11. But she also felt free, like a heavy burden had been finally lifted. She also wanted to rediscover herself and enjoy this new chapter and was looking forward to what was to come. By the night of December 23rd, 2022, Meredith went to a nightclub to celebrate her 39th birthday with some of her best friends. They were all wearing their ugliest Christmas sweaters, having a good time and enjoying the music, when Meredith was approached by a man who introduced himself as Davis. The two chatted for a bit, and they seemed to have an instant connection. They exchanged numbers and went about their nights. By Christmas Day, Davis reached out to Meredith, and the two started texting back and forth. And from that day, the two continued chatting almost every day, and before long, the two began a relationship. Kenneth Davis McClendon was known as being a friend to everyone. He had an outgoing personality that made him perfect for his career as marketing director at an assisted living facility, Wesley Commons, where he worked for 12 years. He was also known to be an incredible athlete, excelling at any sport he tried. He played soccer, football, and basketball in college. After graduating and later in life, he enjoyed golf, eventually getting into the routine of playing every Tuesday evening. Davis had also been previously married and had 3 children of his own from that relationship: a son, Freddie, and 2 daughters, Ella and Annabelle. When the two first began their relationship, they definitely went into it very slow and cautious. From Meredith's side, she was freshly out of a 10-year-long marriage. It was only about 4 months after she initiated the divorce, so she knew that getting involved with someone new, trying to integrate her complicated life with someone else's, that wasn't going to be easy. From Davis's perspective, he was also aware that Meredith was fresh out of her marriage and that the divorce wasn't even finalized yet. So he wanted to make sure that she was officially done with her ex-husband. Not because he was jealous or possessive or anything like that, but because he didn't want to be the reason that a family couldn't or wouldn't get back together. He just wanted to be sure that the divorce is truly what Meredith wanted, and if she found herself wanting to try to be a family with him again, he would step out of the way. But Meredith assured him that she was not interested in being married to Bud any longer. She gave her relationship her all, but in the end, it just didn't work out with the two of them. She wanted to explore things with Davis. She was confident in that. She didn't want to put any pressure on the relationship. She didn't want to have any sort of serious expectations. Overall, she just wanted to see where things went and have fun with it. And that's what they did for the 6 months that followed. Throughout that time, both Meredith and Davis felt that it was best if Bud didn't know about their relationship. After all, Meredith was the one who initiated the divorce, and even though Bud was trying to work on himself, he still very much wanted to be with Meredith. He didn't want the divorce, and maybe in his mind, he felt that he still had a chance to rekindle things with her. Meredith knew that Bud would be upset, hurt, and jealous if he found out, and she didn't want that. She genuinely didn't want to hurt Bud, and she didn't want to seem like she was flaunting this new man right in front of him. She did still care about him. She still cared about how he felt, and even though she was trying to move on, she didn't want to hurt him in the process. So her and Davis made sure to go on their dates outside of Greenwood to avoid possibly bumping into Bud. But their secret wouldn't stay hidden for long. By April 29th, 2023, Bud texted Meredith saying, "How could you?" He then started accusing Meredith of cheating, even though she had met Davis a few months after their separation. Now, I do know that Bud and Davis had known each other prior to this. I don't exactly know how, but Bud also felt betrayed that someone that he knew and knew that Bud and Meredith had previously been together was now dating Meredith. It got to the point where Bud called Davis and told him that they were still legally married and that he didn't appreciate what he was doing with his wife behind his back. He asked Davis to back off until the divorce was finalized. Initially, both Meredith and Davis agreed to this. They could wait until the divorce was finalized to make sure there were no questions about cheating or anything like that. But then Meredith changed her mind. She didn't want Bud to have control over her new life. He already had enough control over her throughout their marriage, and she wasn't about to let him control this part of her life too. So she decided to stay with Davis. They tried to go about their lives as normal after that point. They kept seeing each other, but still tried going to places where they didn't think they would run into Bud. But let's just say, Bud did not make their lives any easier. By the evening of May 6th, Meredith and Davis went to a bar called Break on the Lake in Greenwood, arriving by around 8:44 p.m. A few minutes after they arrived, Meredith received a video call from Bud. Before answering, Davis went inside while she stayed in the car to chat. On the call, she got to talk to her 3 children and Bud. They spoke for about 10 minutes before Meredith hung up and went inside to join Davis. But just a few minutes after that, by 9:08 p.m., Bud texted and video called her again. She answered once again. She stepped outside, and this time Bud was asking all sorts of questions about where she was, who she was with, and what she was doing. He asked why is she doing this to him again, asking why she hates him, why they can't get back together, why she was already moving on. By the time Meredith was finally able to get off the call just before hanging up, Bud told her that he would be seeing her later that night. Of course, this set off alarm bells for Meredith, who didn't know exactly what he was trying to say, but she knew that it wasn't good. But hours passed and nothing further happened. Meredith joined Davis in the bar again, where they saw some other friends and continued their night. But then, a little after midnight, the calls from Bud to Meredith started back up again. This time, she tried ignoring them because she was just trying her best to have a good night. Then, after spending some time at this bar, they headed to Key West, another nearby bar. But again, the calls continued. So finally, by 12:30 a.m., now going into May 7th, she decided to answer. I want to note that throughout that night, Bud ended up calling Meredith a total of 36 times. Now, when Bud spoke on this call, she could tell that he was heavily intoxicated. He continued asking where she was, telling her that he was driving around looking for them, that he was going to find them. He continued to ask how she could do this to him, why she hated him. She sat on the call with him, listening to all this nonsense for a few more minutes before finally hanging back up. But of course, the calls didn't stop from there. By this point, Meredith knew that Bud was drunk and driving around. Meredith did try calling some of Bud's friends and loved ones to see if they could find him and if they could get him to calm down, but no one was answering. Again, it was after midnight. Most people were probably sleeping. But it got to the point that Meredith was getting scared and frustrated. She started telling Davis about what he was saying on these calls and how Bud was out there drunk driving and obsessively searching for them. Davis could tell just how upset all of this was making Meredith, and honestly, it was frustrating to him too, and he just wanted to put an end to it all. He said that he would talk to Bud and try to hash it out like men. He ended up calling him, and the two spoke, and they planned to meet up at the home where Bud and Meredith once lived together for them to talk. Shortly after 1 a.m., Davis left the bar. As he drove away and headed towards Bud, by 1:08 a.m., Meredith called Davis to make sure things were going okay, and he said that he was at the meeting place just waiting for Bud to arrive. Minutes later, Davis then put Meredith on hold, saying that he would get back to her in just a minute. At that time, it appeared that Davis most likely spotted Bud and was about to speak with him. Meredith waited on the phone as she waited for Davis to return, but the call actually disconnected. Then she waited to see if he would call her back or even just send her a text, but he didn't. She then tried calling and texting him a few more times, but he wasn't answering. So finally, by around 1:30 a.m., Meredith called her friends and her children's babysitter, 19-year-old Megan, who picked her up and then went with her to search for Davis and Bud. Since they knew the location of where they were supposed to meet up, she had an idea of where to look. And pretty quickly, they spotted Davis's car at the intersection in front of the cul-de-sac where Bud once lived with Meredith. By the looks of the car, Meredith could immediately tell that there had been a collision and that Davis was not in the car. The car was all dented up and the airbags had been deployed. By that point, Meredith's friend Megan parked the car and got out to see what was going on. And in that moment, she saw the body of Davis McClendon lying on the ground about 50 feet away from his car on the side of the road. At that time, they couldn't tell whether he was dead or just very badly injured. But regardless, they knew this was a horrible situation. Of course, this was a horrifying sight for both Megan and Meredith, who immediately called 911. On the phone, Megan explained the situation, how Davis was supposed to meet up with his girlfriend's ex-husband to have a talk. Davis stopped responding to Meredith, and she immediately got worried, so she went out to search for him, only to find him dead on the ground near his car just minutes after he left the bar.
Okay, what happened?
Somebody has hit the car and he's out of the car and he's been beaten. He's unconscious.
Is it a car wreck?
But it's a one-person car wreck.
He's unconscious?
Yes, it's really bad. He needs immediate assistance.
Okay. Is he breathing?
I don't know. I can't tell.
Okay, listen to me. Where is he bleeding from?
His nose and his definitely his nose.
You said his nose and what else?
Definitely his nose, and I can't tell if it's his thing. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Out of his ears really bad.
Okay, listen to me. Is he flat on his back?
Yes.
Okay. Are you able to turn him onto his side?
Yes.
Okay, listen. You said he's bleeding from his nose and his ears?
Yes.
Okay, is there anybody out there with you?
Yes, I'm with two of other people. He needs help right now.
We've got EMS and law enforcement coming, okay? Okay, listen to me. Can you tell if he's breathing? Is his chest moving up and down?
It doesn't seem like it. Can I touch his chest?
Okay.
His ears are bleeding really bad.
Okay, listen. Do you feel any warm air coming from his nose or his mouth?
No.
You don't feel any warm air?
Actually, maybe. I can't really tell. I'm sorry. I'm scared to touch him.
Okay, I understand. What is your
I
name?
feel it.
Okay, listen to me. Can you tell if he's still breathing? Can you try to talk to him, see if you can wake him up?
So I can touch him? Is that okay?
Okay, yes, ma'am. Try to call him and see if he'll respond to you.
Davis, come on. Wake up. Davis, come on, Davis. Wake up.
Can you tell if he's breathing?
I think he's breathing, yeah.
You think he's breathing? Okay. Is he moving around at all when you call him?
No, he hasn't moved on.
Okay, what's his name?
His name's Davis McClendon. Do I need to see him? Oh, my God. Oh, they're giving him CPR. Oh, my God.
He's still on the line. He might not be breathing.
Come on, Davis.
Hard to tell anything. Who assaulted him?
Everything is but Ackerman. He's just coming here to fight him because he was mad at him. And then we came to check up on him, and then he found him like this.
Okay, so the person that assaulted him, you said his name, Bud Ackerman?
Yes.
Does he live in Hunter's Creek?
Well, he lives in Hunter's Creek, and so him and his best friend separated, and he had him moving on his pants, and like right outside of Hunters Creek. It's like 2 minutes away. It's like Old Abbeville Highway.
Okay. Did he assault him? Did he have a weapon, or do you know? Did anybody see him assault him? Did anybody see it happen?
No, I don't think so. We got here. Nobody was here. We just thought we were going to leave until I saw his body a couple feet away on the side of the dirt.
By the time officers arrived to the scene, they found Davis lying on the ground, face up and covered in blood. They rushed him to the hospital as fast as they could, but later that night, tragically, 46-year-old Davis McClendon died from his injuries. At first, officers didn't really know what exactly they were dealing with, but they knew it looked bad. Megan had already told the 911 operator that they believed Bud was responsible for assaulting Davis. At the scene, there was clearly some sort of collision, and while it could have been an accident, officers noticed a lot of weird things at the scene that made them believe that there may be something more going on here. First, they noticed that Davis, again, he wasn't lying right next to his car. He was lying about 50 feet away on the shoulder. To them, that suggested that he was not in the car at the time of the collision. Then they found that his shoe and shirt were both discarded on the ground next to him. They found tire marks on the ground that led to where the collision happened, and then they saw that the car likely turned around and left. Around those tire marks, they found multiple oil stains as well as shoe prints all around within that oil. It was really the oil stains that caught the attention of investigators because they led away from the scene and down the road. Officers knew that this oil came from the vehicle that hit Davis's, so they actually followed the oil trail as far as it went. Based on the story they had been told about who may have been responsible for the crash, they had a feeling of where the trail would lead them. And before long, it led them just a few blocks away from the scene and directly to a nearby home, the home of Bud Ackerman's parents, which is where he was staying after the separation. When they pulled up, Bud walked right up to the officers, almost as if he was expecting them, while his father stood behind him near the garage. He spoke with them briefly, saying that he had spent the day with his kids at a local festival. He tried making it seem like he had no idea why they were there, but as soon as officers started asking questions, he said that he won't be speaking without a lawyer. Officers then went inside the home to look around. Immediately upon entering, they found oily footprints all over the home, which led into Bud's parents' bedroom. When they looked at the shoes Bud was presently wearing, they saw that they were covered in oil, and he also appeared to have a small amount of blood on his hands. Then, of course, they found Bud's Ford F-250 pickup truck in the driveway. When they inspected the truck, they noticed multiple dents, which indicated that the car had been in an accident. There was a dent the size of a palm print to the front driver's side of the car, as well as damage to the front bumper. So to summarize, they found oily footprints at the scene of the crash, as well as a trail of oil that led from the scene to Bud's house. They then found that Bud had oil all over his shoes and had tracked it throughout his house. Then, the same places where Bud's Ford F-250 had been damaged correlated to where Davis's car was struck. Now, after speaking with Bud and getting a general idea of what happened from Meredith, officers went around the area to gather a more specific timeline, as well as around the neighborhood to see if any of the residents had outdoor video cameras that picked up either of the vehicles involved. Based on CCTV footage from the various bars and restaurants each of them went to, officers were able to confirm the timeline Meredith gave them. They first went to Break on the Lake, got some drinks, and then went to the next bar. As that happened, Bud was also at a local bar where he ordered 4 drinks within 1 hour. During that hour, he called and texted Meredith over and over and over again. After that, he leaves the bar and starts driving around, searching for Meredith and Davis. His car is seen then heading to Break on the Lake, which is where he FaceTimed Meredith at the beginning of the night. Chances are he recognized the background in the call and knew where she was. But when he got to Break on the Lake, he circled the parking lot 2 times before leaving. It appeared that the bar had been closed by that point. He then headed in the direction of Meredith's home and then Davis's home. As he's driving around searching, he's continuing to call Meredith, and by that point, that is when Davis decided to give Bud a call himself, agreeing to meet up with him in person. Based on the timing of that call, officers found doorbell footage from 2 residents nearby where the collision took place. Neither video showed the crash itself, unfortunately, but it did reveal a lot. They found that Bud called Davis back by 1:09 a.m., and we can only assume it was to confirm that he was headed in the direction where they planned to meet. Then by 1:11 a.m., Bud's truck is seen passing the home with that doorbell camera before seconds later you hear a very loud bang. After that loud bang, you hear Bud's voice yelling something out, but you can't make out what he's saying. Just 2 minutes later, by 1:13 a.m., Bud's truck is then seen leaving the area. By this point, investigators had a pretty clear picture of what they believed happened. Once again, Bud was pissed and hurt by Meredith already moving on with Davis. Then, after he got a couple drinks in him, he got aggressive and obsessive. Davis agreed to meet up with him, but instead of having a chat or even beating each other up, Bud saw Davis standing outside of his car and ran into him, killing him out of anger. So by around 6:30 a.m. on May 7, 2023, Bud Ackerman was arrested and charged with the murder of Davis McClendon. After his arrest, he tried telling officers that he didn't mean to hit Davis. He explained that he was heading to the meeting spot, that he called Davis and was actually trying to back out, but Davis was acting aggressive, yelling at him, insulting him, and degrading him for backing out. So Bud decided to meet up after all. When he got there, he said that Davis was standing in the middle of the road, but by the time Bud noticed him, he only had a second to react. He tried to avoid hitting Davis by jerking his steering wheel, which caused him to hit the car instead. Once he realized that he did actually hit Davis, he got out of the car and started screaming and yelling, trying to get him to come to. But he didn't. He saw the blood coming from his nose and ears and already knew that he was dead. This caused him to panic, then leave the scene as fast as he could. He went home and told his parents what happened, but neither him or they called the police to try and save Davis's life. Now, this whole situation did seem plausible given the situation. Davis seemed ready for a fight with Bud. Bud was ready to confront Davis. They both had been drinking. And while it doesn't make sense for Davis to stand in the middle of the street, he was intoxicated, so maybe he just wasn't thinking right. Bud was driving drunk, which is going to slow his reaction time. He tried swerving out of the way, but he didn't react fast enough, so he accidentally hit Davis. It was an accident, but in a panic, he left. Seems reasonable enough. But of course, officers weren't just going to take his word for it, so police confiscated his truck and took it to be forensically examined. Because the truck was a newer model, it had a touchscreen computer which measured and stored very detailed information about how, when, and where the vehicle is being operated. And when officers extracted that data, they were able to see exactly how the night went down. They first created a timeline of everywhere Bud went that day. As I stated, he went by Break on the Lake, Meredith's house, and Davis's house. It then showed as his car started heading in the direction of where he agreed to meet Davis. As he approached the scene, the car's data showed that he was driving about 25 miles per hour on a very dimly lit road. Knowing that it was the neighborhood he used to live in, Bud likely would have known that intersection they were meeting at was on a dead end. He would have been very familiar with the area. He would have been very familiar with the hills and how it turned. He would have known exactly where to go. But it showed that just seconds before the collision took place, the truck was still traveling at 25 miles per hour with absolutely no attempt to brake. Then at 1:11 a.m., the data showed that the vehicle skid on the road and came to an abrupt stop. That is likely just after when the collision took place. Again, just before the collision happened, there was no attempt to hit the brakes. After the car slammed to a stop, the front driver's side door opens and the gear shifts into park. That is likely when he got out of the car to yell something at Davis. The door then shuts before the car is shifted back into drive. He pulls away from the car that he hit towards a light post where he makes a 3-point turn to head out of the cul-de-sac. A few minutes later, the car stops again and his phone disconnects. That is likely when he got home and out of the truck. This information told detectives exactly what they needed to know. It proved that Bud did not try to avoid a collision as he tried to claim. If he truly was trying to swerve out of the way and avoid hitting Davis, he would have pressed on the brakes. There's no question about it. If you're trying to avoid hitting something, anything while driving, it's instinctual to at least hit the brakes, if not slam on them, as you crank the wheel to move. He wouldn't have kept accelerating as he tried to move out of the way. This means that he saw Davis, knew he was there, and then kept going. Putting everything together with the damage on Bud's truck, then the damage on Davis's car, as well as how his body was when he was found, police came up with an idea of how they think the collision took place. So if you're looking forward in front of you down the road, Davis parked his car on the left side so that it would be facing the other car that's pulling up on the right side of the road. They thought that Davis was probably standing outside his car, waiting for Bud to show up and ready to exchange some words. He probably was not standing in the middle of the road, but probably next to his car, because again, there's really no reason for him to be standing way in the middle of the road. But then, as the car was parked, as Davis was standing there, Bud came up, sideswiped the car and hit Davis, carrying him briefly on the truck's front grille before his body fell off and landed on the side of the road. Bud then did absolutely nothing to help him. Instead, he got out of his car, most likely yelled obscenities at him, and then fled, failing to call 911 to report it. If he had called the emergency services, maybe Davis could have been saved. But instead, he laid there for over 30 minutes before he was discovered by Meredith and cops showed up to help. So, after Bud's arrest, the prosecution worked with investigators to build their case, and by September of 2024, his trial for murder began. The prosecution outlined pretty much everything that I've told you up to this point. How Meredith and Bud were separating, and Meredith moved on and started dating a new guy only a few months later. They weren't even legally divorced yet. Bud found out a few months after they started dating, and he freaked out. They brought forward text messages that Bud had sent to a friend saying that he knew Davis was effing his wife, and his friend just replied that he didn't know what to say. He confronted Meredith about it multiple times, calling her and texting her obsessively for days. He asked why she hated him, why she was doing this to him. Then, on the night of the collision, as we know, Bud started drinking, and his behavior grew further out of control. He could not let go of his wife and couldn't get over the fact that she was out with another man. These out-of-control behaviors scared Meredith and frustrated Davis, so he called Bud and they agreed to meet up. By all accounts, both men were ready for a fight. And again, we knew that Bud was out of control. And honestly, I don't doubt that Davis was instigating him, was calling him names, and, was riling him up even more. But that doesn't mean that Davis was at fault for this. It just gives Bud even more of a motive. Now, knowing that both men were going into this ready for a fight, as Bud pulled up and saw Davis standing there, I think, and the prosecution argued, that he took this opportunity to really hurt him, to end the relationship he had with his wife once and for all. He slammed into him, going 25 miles per hour, killing him. He then got out of his car, likely saw the mangled mess he just caused, and yelled obscenities at Davis. According to a neighbor who heard the collision, they thought that Bud yelled something like, "What do you want to talk about now, mother effer?" Though I will say that the actual audio on the video is again too muffled to hear what he said, so we don't know for sure, but I honestly don't doubt that he said something like that. And, just by listening to the tone and volume of his voice, you can tell that he's very angry. He's not, upset, trying to get Davis to come back, trying to see if he's okay. He's clearly very angry. He likely knew that he very badly hurt Davis, and I think he was happy about it. After screaming at Davis as he laid there dying, he then got back into his truck and left. He didn't try to help Davis. He didn't call for an ambulance. Even after he got home and told his parents, they didn't think that it was worth calling police. He didn't rethink what he just did and try to get him help. He just left him there to die. On the other hand, of course, Bud's defense claimed that he never meant to hit him. He initially tried saying that he didn't even know that Meredith was seeing Davis, that he just had a suspicion. But as we saw from texts, we know that this isn't true. He knew, and he was out looking for them. He did admit that he was hurt, and he wanted to talk to Davis that night. He admitted that the amount of texts and calls was obsessive, but it just shows how upset he was. His defense team also pointed out that per South Carolina law, Meredith seeing Davis before the divorce went through is considered adultery, so he had every right to be that upset, I guess. And, I would be upset too if my significant other moved on that quickly. But it does not excuse his behaviors. Either way, Bud maintained that he never wanted to hurt Davis that night. He really did just want to talk. He explained that when he pulled up to the meeting spot that night, he didn't know that Davis was standing outside of his car. He said that he didn't realize how fast he was going and that his intention was to pull up next to the car to talk. The visibility wasn't great, and where Davis was standing, he was on a slight downward slope. They said that he wasn't standing right next to his car, but more so in the middle of the road. So by the time Bud may have seen Davis, he only would have had about 2.5 seconds to react before the collision. For some reason, though, instead of jerking to the right and avoid hitting anything, he actually jerked his car to the left and into Davis's truck. He can't explain why he did that, just that he only had moments to react. Which, to me, it just doesn't make any sense, no matter how intoxicated you are, no matter how little time you have to react. In the US, we drive on the right side of the road. From the time that you learn how to drive, we're used to having to pull off towards the right if we want to pull over or if we want to swerve past something on the road so that we're not swerving into the other lane. So naturally, without even thinking, if you're going to swerve out of the way to avoid hitting something, especially if you only have a few seconds to react, in my opinion, most people would instantly jerk their car to the right. Again, if you're driving and you feel like you're about to hit something and you want to swerve out of the way, you are most likely not going to jerk to the left because you're going to drive right into incoming traffic. So if you're going to try to swerve out of the way, naturally, you're going to go to the right, especially if there's a shoulder there and not another lane. Swerving to the left just does not make any sense. Again, especially because Bud knew the area. He knew that there wasn't another lane to his right. He knew that he could have safely jerked to the right side. Again, even if he didn't have much time to react, it's just instinctual that you're going to do that. But again, that's not what Bud did. So after hitting Davis, Bud admitted that he didn't call for help because he was panicked. His defense attorney said that they really can't judge how someone might react in a state of fight or flight. People do all sorts of crazy, unexplainable things when they're in a panic. So that, I guess, explains why he went home, told his parents what happened, and not one person in that house called for help. Not him, not his parents. I guess they were also in a state of shock and fight or flight, I guess. In the end, the defense said that Bud did not purposely hit or kill Davis. It was a complete accident. But again, we have that computer data from the truck, which does not lie. It does not show any attempt to avoid a collision. It does not show that he tried to jerk his car out of the way. Even if he reacted 2 seconds before the collision, the data would have shown that he at least attempted to slow down. But it didn't, because he didn't want to slow down. He came barreling into that cul-de-sac going 25 miles per hour. If he really was just trying to pull up next to Davis, he would have already been going a lot slower. Even if he didn't realize how fast he was going, if you're pulling up next to someone, again, you're instinctually going to go into it pretty slow. But again, he didn't do that. The evidence on his truck shows that he intentionally hit Davis with his truck. There's no way around that. So after 6 days of testimony, the prosecution and defense each made their closing arguments, and the jury was off for deliberation. And with such a circumstantial case, you might think that it would be difficult to come to a decision, but not for this jury. They deliberated for less than half an hour before coming back with their verdict. They came back and found that Bud Ackerman is guilty in the murder of Davis McClendon. At the sentencing hearing, the court heard from Davis's children, his ex-wife, and his sister. No one could wrap their head around how someone could do something so cruel to their father and brother. Davis's oldest son called the Ackerman family spoiled and evil, saying that it takes the most indecent and evil family not to call the police after seeing something like this happen, to let him lie there, dying, and not even Bud's parents call the police. It's just sickening. Meredith also spoke about how devastated she is about all of this. All she wanted was to move on with her life. She was so excited about where things could go with Davis. She was ready for this new chapter and was ready to build a relationship with him. She also felt that Davis probably saved her that night. Who knew what Bud would do if he found Meredith, who was the true subject of his anger? So instead of her having to face him, Davis went out there and tried to sort it out. If he hadn't, she doesn't know what would have happened to her. Both families are going to have a long road of healing ahead of them. Both Meredith's and Davis's children lost a father, one to death and one to prison. Both will have to live with the consequences of Bud's anger, and they will forever be changed. In the end, the judge sentenced Bud Ackerman to 45 years behind bars. Given his age, he likely will never get out, which is exactly how it should be. And that is where this case ends. This was definitely an interesting case to research, and I'm surprised that it ended up the way that it did. This case is truly mostly circumstantial, and if it wasn't for the truck's computer data, I don't think he would have been convicted of murder, maybe manslaughter at most. But thankfully, that truck was able to tell detectives exactly what happened, and they were able to get this man behind bars. I do agree with the conviction. I think he was drunk and angry, and when he saw Davis standing outside of his car, he used that as his chance to get revenge. I don't know what his true intent was, but I do think he hit him on purpose. I don't think Davis was standing in the middle of the road. I think he was standing next to his car, yes, ready to confront Bud, but instead, Bud just ran into him like a coward. It's just wild to me when someone is dumped because of their behavior, and instead of working to improve that very behavior, they just obsess and can't wrap their head around why the other person left. Because you don't just leave someone after 10 years together for no reason. And Meredith said herself that she just couldn't handle his temperament any longer, and clearly he proved himself not able to fix his behaviors. So instead of working on it while they were still together or working on it after she left him, he continued down the same path. He was so wrapped up in throwing his own pity party that he blamed Meredith for leaving and moving on instead of blaming his own behaviors. He let his temper get the best of him, which is exactly why she left to begin with. And that is what landed him a lifetime in jail. Yet I get the sneaking suspicion that he probably still blames Meredith for it all. I don't know for sure, but based on how he's behaved throughout this case, I wouldn't put it past him. But that's what I think, and now I want to know what you all think. Do you think Bud meant to kill Davis, or do you think it was truly an accident? Do you think the jury had enough evidence to convict him, or was it too circumstantial? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you liked this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn the notification bell to on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Spotify. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.